Okay, let's start on the DC shelf. That's today. Bit of an intro here. The last video we opened Superman. Quite happy with him. I'm more than happy to put him on the shelf. And while there is a spot for him on the shelf, I do gotta ask a real question. Question that we're supposed to ask every single year. That's the way the show works. That's the way my collection works in general. That's the way my rules go. If I was to strip everything from the DC shelf, clean it, and put it back, what stays and how does that part of the display change? Now, first things first, let's go across that shelf real quick, and I want to talk about a couple things. So this is the DC shelf. And yes, because of the kind of collector I am, with the amount of stuff that I collect, these shelves are not necessarily about being dynamic. They're about getting all the characters on the shelf, and there's a reason for this. Yes, this is a display, and I want to be able to see these figures. That is 100% true. I do want to be able to see the figures. I do think that's important. But there's also another reason that this display is more about cramming things onto the shelf, the things I care about, and let's talk about it for a second. One of the things I enjoy a lot about this hobby is doing action figure photography. I like to take items off the shelf, play around, make fight scenes, and come up with stuff, and do a couple of pictures here and there. And so the reason I don't do like a diorama type display is because more often than not, I'm going to be constantly taking things off the shelf, putting things back on the shelf when I do like little skit comedies and things like that. So the goal here is to have things on the shelf so they can be appreciated and seen, while at the same time, I don't need them to be very dynamic necessarily. Some of the guys are literally just standing there with minor poses like a raised hand or a cool sword or something like that. And the reason is because chances are I'm going to take these items off the shelf off and on and do something with them anyway, and then put them back up and rearrange them constantly throughout the course of the year. Because of that, the main thing that we really need to ask ourselves is how to maximize said space, how we can still see the items that are up there, and whether or not all these items deserve to be there in the first place, which actually will clear space anyway. And I could tell you before we even start, I know some of the items that are not staying. They have simply outlived their usefulness, or different reasons in general. And let's jump into it. So first off, let's not surprise anybody. He was literally just added to the shelf. It's not like I'm already going to take him off the shelf just like that. My Superman, DC Multiverse, which is the primary DC line that I am currently collecting, because, one, it is in the $20 to $40 range, which is where I am most comfortable collecting toys. Two, it is in a decent scale comparable to Masterverse. Now I know that might sound weird, but it is actually important to me. One, Masterverse is my favorite line of figures. Absolutely my favorite. And two, DC did the Motu comic books. So it only makes sense that these figures be able to scale and cross over with the DC multiverse. So Masterverse and Multiverse are about the exact same scale, so that's perfect. So right off the bat, probably every single, well, no, I think there's one DC multiverse that is going to be leaving the shelf. But we'll get to that as we get to that. And then there's other guys from other lines that we're still keeping, but we'll talk about them as we go through them as well. So starting off, without a doubt, there is no doubt the Superman stays. Next to him, there's no way I would take this Batman off the shelf. That, I specifically think, is the best Batman that this line has released. I really do honestly think that. Next, we do have to talk about something right off the bat. These two figures, I'm thinking about getting rid of them. Well, first off, she doesn't stand very well. She's kind of a pain anyway. But, so look, these two figures right here, they came in a 4-pack along, or was it a 5-pack? It may have been a 5-pack. Regardless, I remember these two, and I also remember a Batman, which we're going to argue as to whether or not he stays on the shelf. He might be leaving the shelf. And there was a Scarecrow. And the scale of these figures makes it so that the Joker doesn't necessarily line correctly with characters like the Batman on the shelf anymore, which makes it kind of tough to do the stuff that I would want to do photography-wise, while at the same time, their movement is just bad. Like that's it, man. Like, these are not great figures, and they never were to begin with. That's as close to a T-pose as this Joker gets. I have honestly never liked this figure to begin with. Like, from the day I opened it up, I thought it looked cool, and that is it. I do like her, however. She suffers the same problems. She doesn't really move well. But if I'm being perfectly honest, and maybe it's just tying her to the video game, and this costume is very, very, very unique, I think that if I lost her, I would lose something unique. So she's going to stay on the shelf. He's not. I'm going to put him in a bag, and we're going to see if we can get $5 for him at a table or something like that. Because in all honesty, I just don't care that much for him. I do like her, though. And part of the reason is because she is unique. I believe she's unique enough that if I got rid of her, if I got rid of him, I think later on, or even right now, I could probably get him in DC Multiverse, and he would then fit the scale for these guys back here. So that makes him not necessarily a grab-hold figure that would never go anywhere. She also is one that isn't going anywhere. I really, really dig this Harley Quinn. And I didn't even buy this one for me. I bought this one because my wife was reading all of Bombshells and was loving Bombshells, and it kind of got me into buying a Bombshell a figure. So like we went somewhere, I can't remember, and we came across this Bombshell figure, this Harley Quinn. And I always kind of liked Harley Quinn for what it was worth, and I just thought she was so unique and so cool, so I had to get her. So these two Harley Quinns are definitely surviving. They're not going anywhere, but he's being removed from the shelf. I don't see this guy going any further at this point. I hope we'll see how long this whole thing takes, because these are going to be big videos, these cleaning the shelves and talking about everything. But that's okay, because this is kind of a kickback to when I started taking this channel towards toys anyway. This is staying, though it might not stay necessarily on that shelf. This is my favorite Batman car ever. This is my favorite Batmobile. I think the 60s Batmobile, even today, is my favorite Batmobile. And it doesn't take up enough space for me to worry too much about it. Gold Batman fell down. This is the smaller 60s 66 Batmobile Lego. And it's solid. It's solid enough that I'm not going to be getting rid of it. I actually think this is really cool, and I have loved this since I've built it. It's true that it needs a dusting, and that's another part of taking all the toys off and everything like that, and messing around with them and get them dusted and get them ready and everything to be put back up. I may argue with myself about moving this down to the movie shelf. I think, arguably, this and this could go down to the movie shelf that I have, and it would make a lot more sense alongside all of those type of items, and that would also buy me space up here on this shelf, because this, I could argue, makes sense over down by my series with all my series stuff anyway. Gold Batman is not going anywhere. I like the Gold Batman. I really, really think he's cool, and I don't see any reason to get rid of him, as well as Superpowers Superman. And now I'm starting to get enough of the Superpowers guys. I don't want to get myself into another buying problem. I don't. But I have debated how fun it would be to make some like goofy Justice League videos, like some skit comedies like I used to do with Dumbface Skeletor, and that I still sometimes feel like I'd like to continue doing, in all honesty. Let me know if you have any interest in those things. Maybe I'll make like a single long-form video of all the joke comedies that I've done for figures so far, and maybe I'll start working on some other ideas, like for some funny joke stuff or whatever. But I have had the idea that these are pretty cool and simple enough that I could probably get away with some interesting, funny skit comedy things like that and not have to break my bank in order to get them. And also, if they didn't have to go on the shelf, I could argue that these, if I get really involved in the skit comedy stuff, I could probably get like a box specifically for these to keep to the side that I take them out and use them when I need to use them. So that's a first grab wave of figures so far, and so far only one is off the shelf. Okay, so the second wave of stuff that I've grabbed off the shelf is, of course, Nightfall Batman, and you should not be surprised at all. Nightfall Batman, blue and gray. I actually like this one. This is barely, mind you, this is the Batman I grew up with. This is what I love. This is what I want. But that right there is also incredibly solid. And we're talking the difference of so minor, I could put either one of these two on my shelf and be happy forever. Be happy forever. I'm not worried about it. Neither one necessarily edges the other out. Maybe this one, but that's because that's the one that I grew up with. It's the one I know. It's the one I like a lot. Let's see here. We got Robin, which is good. Robin isn't going anywhere. I guess a problem that I do have is this Robin is like bigger than that Batman for the most part. You can make it in photography where it doesn't look like that, but it's kind of noticeable sometimes. And I still would like a better Robin. And I've got hopes for the future of this line now that we're going into cloth capes and stuff like that, that maybe some of these characters, like, don't be surprised at all if I end up buying a third one of these when they come out with the cloth cape. Next, this guy isn't going anywhere, though, how do I put it? I'm not exactly blown away by him. So I like this one, but his knees have been weird since the day I got him. His leg is weird. See, it's like it's bent. And that has bothered me literally since the day I got him, because it really does affect the way he stands. And I guess the only thing I can say is that I guess that makes sense later on when his leg is actually all messed up, I guess. I don't know. The fact of the matter is that he shouldn't have come broken, but I haven't gone out of my way to try to fix him. I think I could even that leg back out, but I could also probably make it worse. And on a $20 figure, sometimes I don't like to test my luck. And I haven't done a whole lot of shots with him or anything, and I don't know that I ever really will, because I got him on the gimmick of what he is. He's not going anywhere, but I definitely got him on the gimmick of what he is, that I love the Christopher Nolan movies, and so I had to at least get one on my shelf. And I think this here is one of the only women that I have on my shelf from the DC multiverse, and that's the Catwoman that I grew up with. And I do like her a lot. I could make arguments for her needing to be better, but in all honesty, I do like her quite a bit, and I don't really think that she's going anywhere. I I've considered picking up some others. I definitely want that Power Girl that's on the way. And I need to shop around a little bit and kind of pick up some girls for the shelf. Because right now, it's really, in terms of the DC Multiverse stuff, it's a lot. It's basically almost all guys. This is not a DC Multiverse. It's a decent Batman. I don't remember what this is. It's okay. Like I said, it's a decent Batman. It is from the Arkham games, and it's not my favorite by a long shot. I think he was the Batman that came with that Joker and that Harley Quinn. And I think I'm probably going to get rid of him. I know there's an Arkham Batman that if I really wanted one, I could put him on the shelf and get him in that scale from these guys. This I liked those games. I never necessarily loved the Batman the way he looked in those games. I mean, that's definitely one of those games where as I play it, I change the skins over and over. I think he's leaving my shelf. I think he is. I don't think there's any real reason to keep him around. This Superman, I don't know what it is. I can't remember if this is from Icons or Classified or something. I don't remember. It might be from Icons. I got that at a Six Flags, and I've liked him a lot. He's actually one of my more favorite Supermans that I've ever put on the shelf. Aside from his cape is huge, and it's got the S, but it's stuck like this, and it's heavy. And anytime that I put him down without a stand, he will fall over. Like almost consistently every single time, it is a real problem with him. But the Batman I got, which is also, I believe, from the same line, he doesn't have that problem. And I have a Wonder Woman that goes right alongside this, so I can put him here and Wonder Woman there and Superman here, and I can create kind of a Trinity display. And that's probably what I'm going to do. And so these guys aren't going anywhere. I actually like them quite a bit. They're not scaled for these guys, as you can see. And they're not even scaled necessarily for like this figure either. So, I mean, I hanging on to them. I like them, and I also have the Superman that actually goes directly with this. So maybe there's an argument to be made that I'll reset something and kind of put him on the shelf a different way. But all things considered, I know without a doubt that they're not going anywhere. I will say this little gimmicky thing right here is fun. It's kind of different. It's neat. It does work. But I think it's going to go the same way. It's going to go down with the movie shelf and whatnot and kind of gain space up here. Such mild space, it probably doesn't even matter. But it is going to happen. Let me grab another wave. Okay, so this Batman is also up there. We covered him. We talked about him and everything. And my biggest problem with him is his neck. If it wasn't for this problem right here, where like there's a hole in the neck, if he looks up and things like that, that makes certain photography things really tough. He always has to like kind of look down. And I really don't like that he's in a permanent brood state, but everything else about him I really like. And he did replace the old one, so he's not going anywhere. But he is one of the ones that's absolutely in danger for future videos like this in terms of how long he'll actually stay up there. I have John right here, Green Lantern. Green Lantern isn't going anywhere. And he has an effect, which I've just been kind of keeping on him. Green Lantern rings and things like that. I don't see any problem keeping them around. For right now, they don't take up a whole lot of space and they're kind of cool. This lantern leads us to a conversation about him. I love him. Like, he is one of the coolest things on the shelf. He's awesome. Kilowog is going nowhere. For future reference, this is another one we'll end up having to talk about because I did get a Hal Jordan. Now, I do plan to actually go out and get a classic Hal Jordan as well, but this one I did pick up. So at some point we're going to be opening him, and I'll talk about why I decided to go out of my way to get him in terms of, instead of just going straight for the classic look anyway. Of course, we're not doing anything without Atrocitus. He absolutely stays on the shelf. And this is one of my favorite Batman figures I have ever had. Ever. As well as a real problem for the rest of the shelf and collection. Like, he's kind of this scale, but he's even smaller than this. So he doesn't line up with this set of figures from the new 52. And he doesn't line up with that Superman back there behind Atrocitus. And he doesn't line up with this Bombshell's Harley Quinn, which is absolutely ridiculous to him. And he doesn't line up with that Harley Quinn, because as you can tell, they're about the same size. So he is like this real problem in the collection where he's a very offhand figure that I like a lot. That is kind of like a Marvel Legends. So he's not going anywhere, but he is in trouble in terms of fitting in with the rest of the collection. But I like that Batman a lot. Then, this has been on the shelf for a long time. Originally, I got that for my wife. She likes Bombshells. I got that. She read the books. She was kind of getting into it. She's not really all about this. Like, this doesn't seem to matter too much. She likes a lot of Sailor Moon, things like that, and we've got her statues and stuff, and so there are things she definitely likes. This is not necessarily one of them. This was one of those gimmicky little things that I saw that I thought was kind of cute. She's, you know, she's riding the bomb and everything like that, and it just made sense at the time, but she's one of those little knick-knack statues that neither me or her is necessarily attached to, and there is no real future for this figure in the collection. Not even so much as I love Wonder Woman, and we'll probably end up having to talk about that towards the end of the video, because the right-hand corner of this shelf is pretty much all Wonder Woman, so we'll definitely be going over that. And I have an idea that if it works out, I know where all the Wonder Woman stuff is going, and we'll be discussing that, of course. But I think she's gone. I think she's just enough of a gimmick that maybe I'll put her at a toy table for $10 or something like that. I didn't even bother to look her price up. Maybe she's worth something. Maybe she's not. And one way or another, I don't think I care. But I will say it is kind of cool in terms of it kind of filling that 1950s era cartoon look. And so that's kind of cool. But otherwise, there's really no place for her in the collection. All right, let's keep it going. Let's do another couple figures. We know, without a doubt, that Kyle Rayner stays, because Kyle Rayner, for the longest time, has been my favorite Green Lantern. So we know he's not going anywhere, and that also means that the other Kyle Rayner isn't going anywhere. I plan to keep both of them, even though I'm not really in the habit of having like a bunch of the same guy on the shelf a bunch of times. I'm not a huge collector of variants unless it's a very specific character. This guy is still one of the coolest guys on the shelf. He's not going anywhere. Black Lantern Batman isn't going anywhere. He's also one of the cooler guys on the shelf. We're definitely keeping the Flesher Superman, because we talked about this. He's like pretty important to me. All the rings are definitely staying. As I mentioned already before, I don't think they take up a whole lot of room, and I don't think they offer that much of a problem in terms of finding space for them or keeping them around. We also have Black Lantern Superman. He will stay for the sake of him just being really cool in general. I have, as I'd mentioned, the new DC 52 Superman. Really solid figure. I like this a lot. But as you can see, he's tiny compared to other figures. And he's tiny compared to those figures over there. And he really also, this isn't necessarily right, because then Batman doesn't seem right, because I like them to be about the exact same size. He really goes in this line right here. And I have, like I said, I have all three of those, because I have the Wonder Woman that goes with them as well. I have a Harley Quinn, which isn't going anywhere. She's a really solid figure, and I like her, and it's the only one I have that's in the classic costume, so I don't really want to get rid of her either. And that leads us to one of the last items on the shelf. This is, of course, Witchblade. And I'm going to be honest, the only reason this stays, it's a very old classic toy, and it stays on the shelf because of its rarity. Like, and that's about it. It is an old toy. It doesn't really fit any aspect that I care necessarily. It's not the kind of action figure that I would normally buy. I bought it on a whim because it was Witchblade. And because I don't really have anything on the shelf that represents Witchblade at all. And Witchblade is a property that I like a lot. It was one of the major times that I jumped outside of the superhero comic books and really experienced something outside of the norm, which opened me up to reading a lot of different things that didn't have to follow capes and cowls. Tight underwear characters kind of got left in the dirt for a while after I really started reading something like this, because then I started reading some stuff like Vampirella, and I started discovering things like Bomb Queen and different stuff like that, and Empowered and things of that nature, and really went down the rabbit hole with just how many other kinds of things existed out there that were outside of the superhero genre. And so I definitely like a better one of her, but as of yet, this is what I've got. And so she kind of earns a place. She's another one of those super gray areas. She barely makes the cut to stay on the shelf. And now we will be discussing all of the Wonder Woman. And one of them is actually leaving the collection completely. I don't feel like she has a place here anymore. So I almost can't believe this, but we almost left out this Batman, this new Batman here, which we love this 66 Batman. This one right here, we love this one. We can't leave him out. He is most assuredly staying on the shelf. So now we can talk about Wonder Woman. So far, all of this is going back on the shelf. We'll clean the shelf. All of this will go back on the shelf. But we need to discuss the Wonder Woman stuff. Over in the corner of the shelf, we have a Wonder Woman set. And over here, we have a Wonder Woman statue shelf. Now I'm thinking, and I don't know how cramped it'll be, but I'm thinking maybe I can get most of all this, if not all of this, on that shelf. So let's go over what pieces are on the Wonder Woman shelf, or what pieces of Wonder Woman we currently have over there, and figure out whether or not we can actually get them over there. And I guess, to be fair, let's start over here. These are the Wonder Woman statues. I have a light back there, which is pretty cool. You turn her on, she casts a wonderful Wonder Woman Wonder Woman. There. She casts a really cool Wonder Woman shadow when she's actually turned on and the lights are off. She's a simple piece, but she's really cool and she's really not going anywhere. The other items, I have an animated series Justice League Wonder Woman back there. This, I can't remember what this is from, what collection this is from, but I remember I seen it and I was instantly like, oh, that's got to be on the shelf. That's one of my more favorite pieces, and it's, is it from the Crystal I'm having a lot of trouble here remembering Crystal Dynamics. Is that what it is? I can't remember for sure. This has been on the shelf for a while. It is one of my all-time favorite pieces. in my entire Wonder Woman collection. I really think that's fantastic. And then, of course, back there, is that the Greg Perez? I'm going to be honest. My mind is running circles right now. I'm having trouble remembering exactly where all the statues are in terms of where they came from, but that's the statues. That's everything on that Wonder Woman shelf right now. Let's figure out what we can add to it. All right, here is a decent little rearrangement of the shelf, which should maximize space on the Wonder Woman shelf. So far, the idea is to put this Wonder Woman over here, which kind of frames the edge, and my biggest, brightest star on the Wonder Woman shelf will then frame the other edge with these girls right here working around the odd. I'm thinking about putting that in the center and her back there, but I also don't want her to be forgotten because that's a really fine piece. But that gives us that much extra shelf space to work with. And the first one that we're going to find a spot for is my Wonder Woman DC New 52. Believe it or not, I actually think this is a very solid Wonder Woman. I know there were some people that really did not like the New 52, and I'm not singing all of its praises or anything like that, but I actually really found this Wonder Woman to be a solid design, and so I went right out and I bought her, and she's always been on the shelf since then. This is the one that's got to go. I don't have any love for this Wonder Woman. I just don't. Like, the longer she has sat on the shelf, the more of a disappointment she has become, in all honesty. It kind of blows my mind just how much I don't like her. I keep thinking to myself, well, she's a cool design. It fits the idea. She's very much Wonder Woman. She'll grow on me. And she never has. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that I don't have a personal attachment to this story. Maybe that it's just overdone. Maybe it's that she's awkward and heavy and like weird balanced. I don't know what it is. I just know that time and time again, this Wonder Woman has failed to impress me. And I think it's time that she was off the shelf. So that's a little more space back. She just doesn't speak to me anymore. I have no idea how much she's worth, if she's worth anything at all, or if I even care in terms of that. I'd probably put her on the table for $10 unless something crazy comes to light that she's like, worth it. But otherwise, I'm not feeling her. I think she leaves the shelf. The rest should stay, no problem. And speaking of the rest, that's my bombshell Wonder Woman right there. And she is an absolutely fantastic piece. Like, she's been one of my more favorite Wonder Woman on the shelves for a long time now. She's just really unique. Like, and if anybody fit the bombshell idea, it was Wonder Woman. Next is this Wonder Woman right here. I do not remember what storyline she is from. If you know, tell me. If you know what figure collection she's from, tell me. I want to say that I got this when I was digging through a bin. Like a bin of loose figures, and this one I just saw in there, and it was unique, but it was still very much Wonder Woman, and it very much caught my attention. And I just kind of fell in love with her. She has an absolute fantastic head sculpt, and the body proportion and everything is very well done. I just really, really like her, and she's never left my shelf since she got on it. This line of figures did not exactly blow my mind. I went to a game store, and she was on the shelf, and I bought her. She's one of those figures that's okay. She doesn't blow my mind, like I said, but she's okay enough. She has the kind of muscle definition and whatnot that I tend to like in Wonder Woman. Her face, I don't know. Maybe it's because they were copying the artist that did this era, but it is just not one of the things that has spoken to me, or rather, it has spoken to me less and less as the years have gone by. Aside from the fact that I don't dislike her, and I don't yet have a Wonder Woman in that style to replace her, is pretty much the reason she stays on the shelf. She's an all-right figure. That is the Mezco 112 Wonder Woman Gal Gadot. And believe it or not, she is the one that I would tell you is closest to leaving the shelf of anything that we are going to go over, aside from the one that has already been removed from the shelf. I took 2 Wonder Woman off the shelf in this video, actually. But this is what put me off of the 112 Mezco for a long time. Like, I was scared to even attempt the Conan Barbarian because she was something I got from the collection, and I do not think she was done well. She doesn't balance well. She feels sticky. That's weird to say, but it's true. The red paint on her armor and whatnot is sticky. It feels weird. And like, the likeness is really good. I remember being super impressed back when I very first got that. But otherwise, the longer that I've had the figure, the more it's just kind of, it doesn't stand out to me. And maybe it's also because she's really small, so she doesn't mend with a lot of the other figures I have. I haven't really sat down to do any kind of real photography with her. Maybe that's another reason that she doesn't grab me very well. Makes me feel like she doesn't really grab my attention. She's good enough that she definitely stays on the merit alone. It's Mezco. It is high quality. I can look at it and tell that. I could tell the likeness, but otherwise, there's not a lot that really keeps her here. She's on the edge of leaving the collection all the time. That Wonder Woman right there, pretty solid. I can't really necessarily complain about it one way or another. It doesn't blow my mind. I got her at about the exact same time that I got her. They were both in like a bin of toys just to be sold. And when I got her out, and she had the sword and she had a lasso, which the lasso is currently right down there. It's right down there. See it back there? That's her lasso. And so yeah, she's fine. She doesn't blow my mind or anything, but she was solid enough piece that she stayed on the shelf since I got her. And just like her, I found her in just a big old giant bargain bin. Wonder Duck, my mom got for me because she said, you need a rubber ducky. And if you have to have one, it may as well be of something you love. Here's a Wonder Woman for your toy collection. And you know what? She's never left the collection. This Wonder Woman is the closest thing I have to a Linda Carter on the shelf. She has a likeness that very much feels like Linda Carter. Now, I know this is not Linda Carter, and I know the comic book era that she's taken from, but doesn't she just kind of have that look? And this is pretty much the kind of costume that she had, and she's holding the American flag and everything like that. She just always kind of struck me as the closest to having a Linda Carter that I ever had on the shelf. And I do think she's a very nice piece. I'll say there are figures here that would definitely be gotten rid of if I had replacements. Like, her and her are definitely on the chopping block if I get something that I can match that outfit. And I can keep this era of Wonder Woman on the shelf, but actually have some posability. There is the Superpowers Wonder Woman added to the shelf. Fine, we have actually talked about her in a longer form video, and I like her for what she is. I did not buy the other one that came out, because having one was enough. I'm not huge on the Superpower line. We've talked about this multiple times, but for what it's worth, there she is on the Wonder Woman shelf. And lastly, this is the most classic looking Wonder Woman I have on the shelf. Right there. She is about as classic as I get. Right here. I don't know if I've ever seen anything Wonder Woman in person that is this, like, original looking. She's not the exact original Wonder Woman. She's not like first appearance, but she's about as classic old style as you possibly get. And she looks like an old toy at that. She's not one of my favorite pieces, but when I seen her, the price was right. And I said, you know what? it would be cool to have a very old style Wonder Woman on the shelf. So this part has been accomplished. I think I just scraped the mic. But there you go. That shelf is now the Wonder Woman shelf. It doesn't have a whole lot of extra real estate, but it's just enough space that I might be able to get a couple more up there, and I might be able to remove a couple of them that I'm not exactly feeling if I ever get decent replacements. Like I said, if I get a really good gal, then she's probably off the shelf. If I get one that still wears this costume that's even better than that, then great. If I could definitely replace this one or this one over here in that style costume, that as well is absolutely perfect with more posability, and especially if I can get them in a scale that matches the other DC figures so I can do photography. But for what it's worth, this is now the Wonder Woman shelf, and it is set up and it's perfect. That worked, which means now we can clean what's left of this shelf. We can actually move this girl, who is Power Princess, not Wonder Woman, onto the Marvel shelf when we get to that shelf and we start talking about those figures. But for right now, let's put the DC shelf back together. We have completed this project. There we go. The shelf has been wiped off. It's been dusted. It's been cleared, and it's ready for all this DC material to go back on it. And you know what? I've had people watch the show before and say, oh my gosh, with your display, good luck with all the dusting you have to do. You know, it's really not that big a deal. I don't know if this room just doesn't get as dusty as other rooms, but like, because of the way I run my collection, where I kind of go through it once a year and determine what stays and what goes and kind of clear the shelves, it's only a once a year activity, and my stuff stays pretty well in order. Like, I don't have to do as much upkeep work as people would think I have to do. Let's load the shelf. Okay, all the figures that form a bit of an odyssey are back there. If they end up getting buried on the shelf, that's not too much of a problem. I know they're back there, and once we review these guys right here, it will open up a window to see right back to them, but we've actually got to unbox these guys and talk about them. But those are the bit of oddity figures. So those are some of the ones that we went over that I said they don't really match the scale of the main stuff that I'm currently working with photography-wise. That doesn't discount them. It just goes to show what I'm talking about. But I got to thinking about it, and I think that I could start using some of these figures back here because they may be in scale with Marvel Legends. We may be able to get some crossover shots that are pretty cool. We'll play around with the idea here and there as I get into posting more photography on this channel and talking about the sets and little things that I've done, little quick talks and stuff like that about inspiration and cool ideas that I've had and stuff like that. Very simple picture stuff, but stuff that I'm enjoying nonetheless. And let's get the rest of it up here because now we have this entire shelf to work with. We now have a lantern corner right here, which all the rings and everything are right there. It's pretty cool. It's an easy display. It's not going to blow anybody away. It's not going to make people be like, oh my God, that's the coolest action pose in the world. But I don't do that in this room because chances are I don't want them in an action pose where I have to take them down and then try to get them back exactly the same way. I want to be able to take any one of these off this corner at any time I want and run some photography with them. So because I'm trying to get way more serious into the photography side of things, I need all my figures accessible, while at the same time, I want them to do exactly what they're meant to do, stand there and look cool. And that is exactly what this lantern corner does, and it's perfect. And here we go. This is it. We got a lot more space back. And if you'll remember, we didn't take that much off the shelf. The only things that left the collection completely was, of course, the Wonder Woman stuff ended up over there on their own shelf. And they have a decent amount of space to go ahead and get one or two more Wonder Woman, probably 3 or 4 in all honesty. But we'll see what happens as we go. We're in no rush to pick up new Wonder Woman, but the option is always available to us at this point, and that can even be rearranged even further. And now, of course, we have this right here, which is all set up, and we have all of this space, and the only thing we really got rid of was Wonder Woman statue and 3 figures, and that's it. I personally feel like it is important to go over your collection at least once a year. Take it down, clean it, reevaluate it, figure out what stays, what goes, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And you'd be surprised how often you feel like something just doesn't fit anymore, or something is kind of moved down your list of importance, or the hype of an item is gone, which has changed the way you feel about it, or something about your life has just changed exponentially and items are for some reason more important to you than they used to be. It's important sometimes to really keep that scale going. I do that every year. As you noticed, this time I was saying things like, this was really great, it has died on me quite substantially. I talk about that kind of stuff in these videos specifically to go over why I collect the way I do. And every now and then I do make decisions that some stuff no longer has a story, no longer has a reason, and it's gotta go. These items, I already talked about these. These are going to go down to the movie shelf. And that shelf makes more sense for these items because this is Batman 66, and it'll go down there with Elvira and a couple things like that that already sit on the movie shelf and the series shelf because that makes sense for them. This has been more of a rough project in terms of staying steady with it. I've basically been working 10-hour days, and then of course with the commute as well, it's basically like a 5-to-5 operation, and then by the time I get home and get stuff together and then come up here and then put maybe 20 minutes into the process, and of course because I'm filming it, it took me longer to do the normal. If you're not filming a process like this, you could probably knock it out like that. It's not that hard, but I'm talking about every single piece and I'm making a video and I'm doing content. If I wasn't doing content, if I'm being perfectly honest, it wouldn't have taken me 3 days to do this. I'd have taken everything off the shelf, thrown it onto a chair, wiped the shelf off, picked the items up one by one and said, yep, no, yep, no. And then I'd have been done. Then I put them all back on the shelf, turn the lights on, bink, great, I think it looks great, I'll move on from there. That's part of the reason why I'm starting this process this early this year, is because if I'm going to film the process of going shelf to shelf and talking about what needs to happen, it's going to take me longer to do, because normally I knock this out in about a day. Like, I know it seems like it would be a lot, but it's really not. You go one shelf at a time and take this bottom shelf, I just take everything off of it, whoop, wipe it down, put it back up. Takes relatively 15-20 minutes a shelf. I usually put on like Gundam news or something like that and kind of listen in the background. I believe his name is Kakarot197. So he's somebody that I listen to sometimes when I'm doing like Gunpla builds and stuff like that, or something that I can just listen in the background. I don't normally have to see what he's talking about. That's what I do. And there is still a lot to go over. This year, the DC shelf is now done. The Wonder Woman shelf is now finalized for the most part. And there are a couple things that need to go over. Like, right now, the X-Men have their own shelf. It's up for debate if they will keep that shelf or if they will repivot down into the Marvel shelf. And the Fantastic Four, who is a smaller collection, but more guaranteed to stay the size that they're at, because the only time I'm really getting more Fantastic Four is like here and there. It's not like I don't add to the Fantastic Four all the time because they're the four and I've got them. There's not much else to do with that but have the entire family. And I have the entire family young form, and I have the entire family more modern form, and unless they release like a future Foundation, which do I even want that? I don't know, maybe, arguably. But you could tell what I'm getting at, that's pretty much done. Aside from getting randoms, like if they actually release She-Hulk in that outfit, but for right now, She-Hulk will probably just go on the shelf with them. They may take the X-Men slot for their own personal shelf, while the X-Men repivot back onto the long shelf because it makes sense for them to have a long shelf because there's a lot more of them. Kind of like how Wonder Woman is a very contained collection. It's right there. These are decisions that I try to make every year. And I used to do this video as like a once-over where I would basically clean, take the entire room down, put the entire room back up, and then come in and talk about like my year update. I'm not going to do that this year. I'm very much going to do what I just did. And maybe, for the sake of, maybe it would be cool that each time I do one of these, maybe I should also do a top 10 figures of the shelf. Like for each section. I break the section down, I put it back up, and then I talk about the top 10, or if it's a self-contained smaller shelf, the top 5 figures of each shelf. Well, that would give me 2 videos right there. That's content right there. If somebody wants that, I could do 10 figures from this because it's a bigger shelf, 5 figures from the Wonder Woman shelf, and talk about what my absolute favorite pieces of each are. I could probably do that as I do this and get a little more in-depth as to what really sticks out to me. But for right now, we've done enough. That was the entire DC shelf. There's a lot more to do. I'm gonna get out of here.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.